Hello, everyone. Welcome to this morning's virtual hearing. As you'll have heard, I don't have gallery view, but I can still see you all at the bottom of the screen. Can I just check, can you just all give me a thumbs up just to show me that you can all hear me? Okay, thank you. I think that was everyone. Right, so my name is David Liddell. I'm the reporter appointed by ministers to determine appeal reference PPA-240-2065 relating to land at Crownerland Farm at Whitecross. And as you've been hearing from him, Callum Henderson is also sitting and listening to the meeting to help us out if we've got any IT issues. This is hearing number 4 at Whitecross Primary School, although it's the first of our hearings to be held. And I'll ask parties to introduce themselves in a moment, but I first of all need to go through just one or two formalities. So firstly, a reminder that this meeting will be recorded. It will be stored as part of the DPE's webcast archive and will be capable of repeated viewing. I have the discretion to terminate or suspend filming if, in my opinion, allowing filming to continue would prejudice the proceedings of the meeting. By participating in the virtual meeting, you're consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images and sound recordings and any information pertaining to you contained in them for webcasting and training purposes, and for the purposes of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. And further details can be found in the DPA privacy policy, which can be found in our section of the gov.scot website. So I can hear some interference in the background. So just a reminder, for those of you who are participating, if you keep your video on, but if you can turn your sound to mute, except when you're speaking, please. And that will just help everyone hear whoever's speaking at a particular time. And for those observing only, please turn both your video and sound off, as Callum advised earlier. And if there are any parties in the same room, please note that I expect the relevant social distancing and other COVID-19 related measures to be observed. If they're not, I might be forced to suspend the meeting. Lastly, before we begin, I just want to say thank you. The nature of the evidence in this appeal, combined with the COVID-19 measures in place, means that this has been quite an elongated process so far, and I might otherwise have been able to have a number of hearings sooner. So I am very grateful for the written evidence that you've all submitted in response to my many questions and for your participation in this virtual hearing. And perhaps I can ask Mr. Campbell and Mr. Vivian to pass on those thanks to all those other people in your camp, in inverted commas, who've contributed to all the written evidence and who'll be taking part in the series of hearings. So I'm going to just ask the parties to introduce themselves, please. And as I mentioned, if you just turn on and off your mic as you do so, and I will try and do likewise. Mr. Campbell, first for the appellant, please.
Good morning, and good morning, everybody. My name's John Campbell. I'm a Queen's Counsel at the Scottish Bar. I'm appearing here for the appellants, instructed by Angela McCracken of Bannatyne, Kirkwood and France, solicitors in Glasgow, and Paul Houghton of DM Hall and Co, surveyors and consultant planners. And I'll be appearing in each of the hearings over the next 2 days, and then I think on the 16th after that. And I think you already have a list of my witnesses, sir, but if not, we can come to them with each subject topic as we get there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Campbell. Yes, that's fine. We can do it session by session. So your witness today, Mr. McKinney, you're also appearing for the appellant.
Can we hear you, David?
Mr. McKinney, yeah, I can't hear you. Have you got your microphone on?
Yes, that's correct. I'm acting for the appellant.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Mr. McKinney. I'll turn to you, Mr. Vivian, for the council first. I know you've said that today you expect Mr. Teed to be doing most of the work, but if I could just ask you to introduce yourself first, Mr. Vivian.
Yes, good morning. My name's Brent Vivian. I'm a senior planning officer in the development management unit at Falkirk Council, and I was the case officer dealing with this planning application and appeal.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Teed from the council.
Hi, I'm Richard Teed. I'm a Senior Forward Planning Officer with Children's Services, and I've been the officer responsible for assessing planning applications for new housing for the last 15 years and where that might impact on school capacity.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Teed. Thank you very much. And finally, Ms. Devlin.
Morning, I'm Catherine Devlin. I'm Senior Planner in the Development Plan team in Falkirk Council.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So you'll hopefully have seen the agenda for the hearing, which Smira, the case officer, sent out last week. Most of the questions I have are, in fact, for the council. My apologies, Mr. Tweed. That's just the nature of the evidence, because it's the council's projections and calculations, which it says should be the basis for any planning obligation, and therefore that's what I need to test in the first instance. In any event, I will try to give both parties a fair chance to comment on each of the matters we discuss. If I've not done so, or if you want to come in at a particular point, then just raise your hand like that. If I'm not getting your attention, sorry, if I don't pick that up though, just put your mic on and do come in if I've ignored you or not noticed that you're waving your hand at me. Okay, I've confirmed, I think in response to Angela McCracken's question, that you can ask questions of each other through me, and that might well prove very helpful, but I will only allow that to the extent that I think it will help me understand the evidence before me or the positions of the parties, because that's the sole purpose of the hearing. Please remember, I don't need or want any repetition of the material in the written evidence just for the sake of it, but if you do need to go over something so as I can understand it, then that's fine. Okay, I listed on the agenda the documents that we may need to have access to. For my part, it's probably 5 or 6 of those that I want to refer to today. So it'd just be helpful if you're able to have access to those. Finally, before we start, we have set aside 2 hours for this hearing. I have more questions for this hearing than for hearing 5, which is to follow this afternoon. So if we don't get through the material in 2 hours, we can perhaps either extend it slightly, although 2 hours is perhaps long enough for a session of this kind, or we can resume in the afternoon before going straight on to hearing 5, because I think that'll take less time. But we'll see how it goes. Okay, so the first item in my agenda, well, sorry, I should say, is everyone content with that as an agenda and a way forward? Or you can wave your hand if there's any concerns or questions you have at this time. Okay, that's fine, thank you. Okay, so the first item in my agenda, apologies if I'm not always or often looking straight at you, I'm just looking at my other screen for some of the materials here. The size of the school extension proposal of the council. So I just want to recap, just so I understand the factual position and what the council is asking for. The school has 4 classrooms at the moment. The education consultation response back in May 2018, I don't think we need to look at it just now, but this is where this comes from, suggested extending the school, as I understood it, suggested extending the school so that it would be 8 classes, 3 newly built classes and 1 converted, another class converted from the existing nursery block, and the replacement larger nursery block would be provided. And the council's view is that 8 classes are needed, and I think the council has since clarified its position or explained its position, is because that's how the council operates, or at least plans for all its single stream schools. There's 8 classes because there might be a need for 2 primary 1 classes, or perhaps a composite class, or alternatively it's a general purpose room which can become an 8th classroom if needed. Can I just check, Mr. Tweed, is that a fair summary of what I've said so far?
Yeah, the normally with a single stream school, if you've got a class intake of around 30 pupils, you would need 2 classes in primary 1, either 2 primary 1 classes or a primary 1-2 composite, until the numbers reach the class size limits that are permitted for primary 2 and beyond. When I looked at this back in 2018, it was a slightly different application. I think it was up to 250 houses, am I right? It was also very early on in the whole 1140 expansion program as well, which is the expansion program for early years. When do you want me to?
Well, let's take it in stages. If we can,
Okay.
I've got a series of questions that I want to ask, and it might be that what you're about to talk about we'll come on to through my agenda. If we don't, and if you think it's important, then we'll come back to it. But if we just, I think if we can try and just answer the questions that I'm asking directly, in the first instance at least, and then we can come back to the agenda. Because this first point is just to clarify what council is looking for from the school extension. So maybe then if we can look at the council's response to the appeal on education capacity. So I think that's the document that you perhaps prepared, Mr. Tweed, the 7-page document FC21. I think it's in landscape format and 7 pages.
Yeah. Okay,
so hopefully others have got access to that or can get it. But if you have it before you, Mr. Teed, is that correct?
Yeah, I've got it somewhere. Yeah, I'll get it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And others can stop me if they're struggling to see it or they think they need it. But if we can look at page, this is a 7-page PDF, so if we can look at page 2 of 7.
Yeah.
In fact. So. Yeah, and that's so page 2 there has the bespoke forward projection for the school, accounting for the appeal proposal, and it has 7 class groups.
Yeah.
And then if you go on to the next page under the subheading extension costs, the proposal there seems to be 2 new classes, not 3, plus the converted nursery room. So that's why I asked the question, and it's just for clarification: is it 7 or is it 8 classrooms the council thinks are required here? Because it seemed to be 8 initially and 7 in your later response.
Yeah, well, when I looked at the floor space required, I had to look at the school as a whole, and work out what the costs are going to be. We needed an extra 30 square metres for the nursery than I'd previously calculated, because I had better information on nursery extension costs. And I kind of concluded that looking at the projections, the risk that primary 1 would go over 25 was quite low, and that could be managed using the ancillary room, which is a computing ICT library room. So although the floor space is broadly the same as the 2018 response, and the costs will be broadly the same, the number of classrooms was reduced by 1 because I just changed the configuration around just to use that floor space as I felt would be more effective to deliver the capacity required for accommodating this development. But having said that, there is always a risk. You can't predict how many children will come from each cohort. We built a single stream school in Larbert, St Bernadette's, and quite early on in that school opening, there was a cohort of 40 children, so they've required 8 classes all the way through. And that's
okay.
Yeah.
We will come on to to those wider questions shortly.
Okay.
But that's fine. So that point was just a narrow one about clarification. And
Right.
another, Mr. Campbell or Mr. McKinney, I will come back to you in a minute to give you the chance to comment. But I've just got one more question first for Mr. Teed, I think. I think at some point in the council's evidence, I think in response to Mr. McKinney's suggestion as to how the five or six groups would work in the school, I think the council's response was along the lines that, well, you would never in practice run a school like that, and once you reach a certain point, you would tend to go to a full single stream school. But I also have seen from the council's models that those do account for 5 and 6 stream schools, 5 or 6 class schools. So I just, as I understand the council's position, and we'll come on to the details here later, but the council's not saying that it's, you would go the next size of school up from 4 classes is 7 classes. It's possible to have 5 and 6 class schools. It's just that it can become tricky with numbers. It can introduce other difficulties. But the council's not saying once you go beyond 4, you have to go to 7. Is that, again, Mr. Teed, is that fair summary of what the council's saying to me?
Yeah. I mean, the model's completely scalable. However, once you get up towards 150 pupils, it does become unsustainable to run out, as 5 or 6 classes, because you can't really predict cohort numbers and how all those numbers are going to fall. So, which is hence the requirement for a 2-stream school, a single stream school.
Okay, so you're saying that above 150 pupils, you would always plan, or you would always look to provide a single stream school.
Yeah, it could be 140, it could be 155. The numbers are very hard to predict. It depends on how the numbers fall. It's something we have to look at every year with every school, and we try and manage in the most effective way possible.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Campbell, I'm not sure whether you're going to ask questions through me or Mr. McKinney's got any comments to make, but I'll go to you first, Mr. Campbell. Have you got anything to contribute at this point? Mr. Campbell, are you? Can you wave your hand, Mr. Campbell, if you can hear me? Right, sorry.
I did hear you. Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. I'm a little worried about Mr. Teed's lack of precision in the approach that he's taking, but I don't propose to give evidence to you. I think this type of hearing really depends on the contributions of the experts. So I'm going to defer to David McKinney to respond to Mr. Teed's submissions there. I see we've been joined by Mr. Houghton now. Mr. Houghton's not taking part in this inquiry except as an observer. So I wonder, sir, if I could ask him through you if he could turn his video off and listen.
Yes, Mr. Houghton, if that's okay, please. You're very welcome to listen in, but if you turn your mic and your camera off, then it helps with bandwidth, and also it means I'm only looking at those people who are participating, if that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Houghton. So with that, sir, I'm going to defer to Mr. McKinney to respond to Mr. Teed's evidence, if I can.
Okay, yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Mr. McKinney, I'm going to give you a chance just to respond on that, on those points. Bear in mind, there's other things we're going to come to. So and I'll give you the chance to come back on other issues, but just on the particular clarifications that Mr. Teed has given to me, have you got any observations to make or want to make any comments on those? Mr. McKinney, are you? Can you hear me? So, Mr. Campbell, can you hear me, Mr. Campbell? Sorry if we're having issues. Okay. It seems that Mr. McKinney might have been locked out. I wonder if Callum's listening. If that's any, give us a hand, Callum, with that. Mr. McKinney.
Yes, we have some problems listening to the sound at the moment. It's quite broken up. I think of what was being discussed again was the number of classes at Whitecross Primary School, and the issue of there being 5 classes automatically means there's a need for 7 or indeed 8 classes. Now, my position would be that there are many schools across Scotland that quite happily exist as 5 classes, and we've given many examples of that in our responses. And in terms then of class organisation, even if the school is at maximum capacity of 125 pupils, or 25 pupils in each class, then again, that should not be a particular difficulty for teaching staff at the school, as given the fact that they are trained, shall I put it that way, to deal with that situation. The class sizes at 25 are smaller than they would be at 33. So I have no difficulty with a school of 5 classes, 125 pupils. I don't see that as a particular educational problem.
I think we might be having a bit of issue with the reporter's connection just now. It says his video is turned off due to low bandwidth. I'll just drop him a Skype message just now to see if he's still in the call and able to hear you all, but I'll just be 1 second. The reporter's just dropped out of the call just now. He should be joining back just any minute now. Apologies for this.
David, can you hear us? Now there's the reporter back.
I do apologise for that. I'm not sure if everyone's here. I lost internet connection, so I've just switched to my phone 4G. So hopefully that's fine. Can everyone, again, can you wave your hand if you can hear me, please? Okay, thank you. Mr. McKinney, can you hear me okay?
It's still a bit broken up from my end.
Okay, let's see how we go. You hopefully heard Mr. Teed's evidence there in response to me. So I just want to give you the chance to come in if you've got any comments on what you heard, not widening it out any further than the content of that first part of the agenda. We will come on to other things, but just in terms of what Mr. Teed was telling me there, do you have anything to add to what you've already set out in writing there?
I don't have anything particular to add to what has already been submitted. As I have said, I remind you that the 8-class organisation, in terms of a school role, can accommodate 231 pupils. That's very much greater than capacity of a 5-class school, which is 125 pupils. So an 8-class school is quite a different thing compared to a 5-class school. And indeed, at the 8-class school, you can have 4 classes of 33 at P4 to P7, and then 3 classes of 25 and 1 of 24 across P1 to P3. And that then means you have your 231 pupils and 33 per stage. And that, as I say, that's very significantly greater than is required for a 5-class school. And indeed then, in terms of protecting a 5-class capacity at a school, then there are at least 5 legal grounds of refusal in terms of the Education Act that can be brought to bear to assist in managing capacity at a school. And that's whether it's a 14-class school, a 4-class school, or a 5-class school.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McKinney. Some of that in respect of the Education Act and managing placing requests, I think we were going to talk about perhaps this afternoon, but we'll come back to that if we need to. Okay, if people are content, I'm happy to move. I think I can move on to the second kind of set of questions I had, which was about the school role projections. And as I said in the agenda, this is likely to take the most time, and so it's really so as I can understand how the council's projections are put together. Some of the questions I asked earlier on, I think I now understand your responses to the hearing statements have helped me further understand what I'm looking at when I look at the projections. So I think a couple of my questions earlier on were probably a bit misconceived, and your answers have put me right. But anyway, let me go through this firstly with Mr. Teed, and then I'll come back again to Mr. McKinney, I would imagine. And again, just a reminder about mics off when we're not speaking. So firstly, I want to talk about pupil product ratios. And I noted that the basis for these is as explained in Appendix 1 of SG10, and that's Council Document FC06. And you may not need to have this before you, Mr. Vivian, because Mr. Teed, because you'll know this, off the top of your head quite easily, I would have thought. But anyway, paragraph A6 in the appendix of SG10 is where I got some explanation from how these are worked out. So they're based on all housing completions from a survey of all housing completions from 2000 to 2017. Sorry, just checking. Everyone hear me okay as I'm going through this? Again, just wave if that's okay. Okay, thank you. And I've seen the analysis document provided by the council in its response to Procedure Note 5, page 29 to 36 of that provides the council's analysis of that data from that survey. So what I'm interested in is how that sample, excuse me, just till I get this up on my screen. Yeah, what I'm interested in is how that sample was undertaken, Mr. Teed. Was it a snapshot, you know, one-time snapshot for each house at a particular point in time, and therefore some of those houses will have been a year old, and some of them would have been 9 years built, or was it an average numbers of pupils living in each house over a number of years, or was it, you know, a year after completion for every house, and therefore it was a 10-year survey? I'm just trying to understand where that average derives from, Mr. Teed. Can you help me out?
Right. Yes, it was a snapshot taken in 2017 of all volume housing developments over the previous 10 years, and it looked at the number of children within each house or in each development, and worked out averages for the developments, and from that we worked out an average right across the council area, and it was a little higher than the previous averages. This is an analysis that we've been doing every 3 years or so for some time now, because our first SG in this area was in 2007, but we've been doing this analysis on a regular basis. So this is the most recent one. There's no sound, Mr. Liddell. Can't hear you. I'm afraid I can't hear you, Mr. Liddell. There was no sound when you came back. No, I can't hear.
We have no sound, Mr. Little.
David, had you used the microphone at all there? Using the microphone itself rather than... It might be worth trying unplugging your headset and see if we can still...
No sound. I missed that last bit from Richard. I was thinking of switching to headphones. The reporter sounds quite broken up at times.
Callum, can you fix Mr. Little's sound or not?
I've messaged David on Skype. He can't hear us at all either. If you bear with me a couple of minutes and I'll try and get this sorted. David, can you hear us now? No.
Mr. McKinney's going into orbit now. Sounds like somebody's Ferrari in the background.
The reporter's just going to leave the call and join back again to see if that has any helps at all. This is really strange for me because everything seemed to have been working okay beforehand with the reporter at least, and it just seems to have switched off all of a sudden.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, I could hear you okay there, David.
Yes, I can hear you fine, David.
Okay.
Hi, David. Can you hear us at all now? You can hear us. Right. I'm not sure we can hear you just yet.
Can't hear you, David.
No. Is that still your Scott's laptop that you're using? I was messaging Ewan just there, and he suggested using a non-Scott's device. Is that what you've done? Yep. So still no sound.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Yep.
Excellent. I'm terribly sorry about all this. Yeah, everyone can hear me. Is that okay? Is that, yeah? Okay. I'm now on my own computer, so don't accept any IT from the Scottish Government. If we can go back to where we are then, where we were, well, I'll just gather my material. I think I want, yeah. So, Mr. Teed, you were explaining the survey that you did in 2017, and the last thing I heard was that was you do that every 3 years, just to keep your understanding up to date about pupil product ratios. And so it was a one-time survey. So some of the houses at that date in 2017 would have been newly built, and some of them would have been up to 10 years old and from first completion. So that's helpful. So some of my questions earlier on in the earlier materials, I think I was assuming the PPR is something which one applies to a new house forevermore. But I understand it better now, thinking it's like a pulse. It happens initially. You get a kind of spike in primary school age children when new houses are built. So if it's a 10-year survey, might that mean that the PPR of 0.32 is an underestimate because some of those houses will have been 8 or 9 or 10 years old, and therefore they'd have been beyond that initial burst of new pupils? Or does it just reflect the reality that it's a bit fuzzier than that, and that, you know, over a period of about 10 years, that's the kind of amounts of new pupils you would expect from newly built housing? So families just emerge a bit more steadily as new houses get built and new development gets built out. Just is it the second part of those, Mr. Teed?
Yeah, it's an average, and you know, averages are always wrong because they're not the exact thing. But the real situation is much more variable than that. You know, we've got some developments where the pupil product ratio is much higher, and others where it's a bit lower. So it just really works that out over a long period, and looks at new houses and tries to estimate, you know, how much new children will attend schools. We knew it was going up because of some experiences we've had in certain areas of the council, and it did jump quite a lot. And I think it's just the nature of the kind of houses that are being built at the moment. The reason we do it every 3 years is because, you know, the housing market changes, and the types of houses being built change, and, you know, people's motives for moving into new houses change. So we just want to sort of to be as flexible and fluid as we can over time with that. But right now it's the nature of the housing that's being built that reflects the PPR.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, this point was just so as I understood it right, and that your response is what I expected it to be. So I don't think this is a matter of conjecture, in as much as I don't think there's a dispute that 0.32 is an appropriate PPR to use if we're doing any calculations here. So I'll move on, and unless somebody tells me to get more to say in this point. So can I then, with you, Mr. Teed, just go through the bespoke projections that you prepared? So if we can look at the council's response to procedure note 5, if you can get that to hand.
So before you move on, I wonder if Mr. McKinney could just be asked to respond to that question on the matter of averages, taking 2 averages, one across major developments, according to Mr. Teed, and then one across the whole council area. I'm not a mathematician, but it sounds like it's an average of an average, or an average of a series of averages. And I'd just like to ask through you if Mr. McKinney has any comment on that methodology in terms of its accuracy or likely accuracy.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. McKinney, have you got anything to add on that?
Unmute your microphone, David.
Yep. I'm still just picking up part of the sound. So I think we're speaking about housing child per house ratios and how that different development sizes can have slightly different child per house ratios. I think it's very clear to me from my experience that, for example, a housing site, a development area such as Kinnaird and Falkirk, or a development area of Wester Inch, Bathgate, or indeed a Winchborough, the co-development area of Winchborough, the large housing developments will tend to have quite a normal housing profile, and that is where you will have a high number of children, young children coming forward in the early stages of the development. Then after a period of time, depending on the overall numbers, if it's a 2,000 house development, you probably will find that after 10 years of that development taking place, that the child per house ratio, the number of children coming forward, will start to fall off. And over time then, the numbers can reduce by a 2/3 from the peak numbers that originally come forward. If we're dealing with a smaller housing development, then the numbers that could come forward will be quite substantially different, and will be more related to the nature of the housing that's actually being proposed, its location, and it will be quite different from those larger development areas. And I think we have to be quite cognizant of that fact. The development at in Whitecross is more likely to have a profile closer to that of Whitecross itself, as opposed to something radically different like at Kinnaird. So we shouldn't be making those direct comparisons across skills of development that aren't really comparable.
Thank you. I don't want to ask any follow-up questions.
Okay, thank you both for that. Right, I wanted to go through then, my apologies again, Mr. T, just so as I can understand it, I started to take you through the Council's response to Procedure Note 5, and it's pages, so again, I have a 36-page PDF, and it's where I want to start is on page 27 of that PDF, so...
No, I don't think I have that one.
Right. So this is the council's response to the procedure notice 5. Do you have that before you, Mr. T?
No, I don't know. No.
Is it possible you can get it? It's one of the documents I listed in the agenda.
Right.
I'm not sure whether someone else can email it to you. If that might be the quickest thing. If you have it, Mr. Vivian, perhaps.
I'll just see if I can send it to Richard. I'll just try and find it.
I mean, maybe while Mr. Vivian's doing that, Mr. T, I can just, I need to look at it because I'm new to all this, but you might not necessarily have to have it in front of you to answer the questions that I have. But once if you do get it, then it might be helpful anyway. So, it's just at this point, just my understanding of, excuse me. Just my understanding of what I'm looking at when I look at the projections. I'll come back to the appellant with a chance to comment on the merits of that, but it's just my understanding just now. So the PPR is, as I understand it now, looking at the tables, it's a one-off event, if you like. So for every new house that's built, 0.32 primary school pupils are assumed to have come from that house. And that's done once a year. The model, if there's 10 houses, that'll be 3.3 pupils. If there's 100, that'll be 33 pupils, and they are distributed across the year groups in the primary school in the model, with a bias towards the younger age groups. And then, as far as the model treats that, each successive year, that cohort then just works its way through the primary school and through the secondary school thereafter. So far, I'm understanding that right, Mr. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you could let me know once you've accessed the document, and just
I have, yeah, I've got it.
Excellent. Thank you. So I'm on page 27 of the PDF. The document itself is unnumbered, but it's Whitecross Primary School 2019-2020 role projections. Okay, so that's good. So, and preschool age children are in this model are also factored in from the new houses. On completion, a new house has 0.32 primary school age children, also an assumption about the average numbers of younger children. So is that when I look at the tables, the white table with migration 0 to 1, migration 0-year-olds, migration 1-year-olds, migration 2-year-olds, and so on, is that showing me the model's assumptions about preschool children in the new houses, or is that showing me something else?
Yes, that's the number of children moving into the new housing at preschool age.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they feed in each successive year the model.
They do, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And so those numbers there are not additional to the projections. They feed into the projections, and the projections above take account of them. Yeah.
That's right. Well, that's why they don't have an impact for a number of years until become part of the cohort.
After the completion of a house, the model assumes a birth rate in each of the new houses at 0.25 houses per 0.25 births per year per house. Is that, again, am I getting that right?
Yes. That's based on an analysis I did over 10 years ago, looking at the background birth rates, and it's really sort of consistent with what you would expect in the general housing in an area.
Okay, and so of course those birth rate children, we call it that, they would end up being factored in the model in year 5, year 6, year 7 as those births become school age children.
Yeah, it allows me to project a bit further forward and to look at the impact of particularly large developments, particularly ones that have a high proportion of the existing housing stock, and they're actually like this one. There's actually 50% increase in the housing stock in the area.
Okay. So see the table that says increased birth rates bracket cumulative. Sorry, the line increased birth rate bracket cumulative.
Yeah.
Is that just showing me the total effect of new births in the new housing, or is that something else?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay.
So that first figure of 1 would impact on primary 1 in 5 years' time. So, yeah. Okay. So that sort of builds into the model further down the line.
Okay. So on that point of just thinking of this birth rate of 0.025 per house per year, that's an assumption from the councils. Is this a big issue for the appellant, Mr. McKinney? Because we'll come on to other assumptions later, but just on that one, that's 1 new child per year for every 40 houses. It might be too high, it might be too low, but and putting it to you, it might not be that big a deal whether that's whether that goes up or down a little bit in terms of the effects we're looking at. Is that fair, Mr. McKinney? Can I assume this is not a big point of dispute, or maybe you can give me your comments on that? Just on that assumption.
Yeah. Again, I'm missing parts of the questions discussion. So I think we're discussing the child per house ratios. The value of 0.32 that Falkirk use, I would suggest that's not unreasonable. You know,
Mr. McKinney, can I come in? I'm sorry you're struggling to hear. Well, the question I had for you was a narrower one. The council assumes for the new houses a birth rate beyond initial completion, beyond the PPR, a birth rate of 0.025 births per house per year, which amounts to, by my calculation, one new child for every 40 houses in the subsequent years. And I was asking whether you took any great issue with that, and whether it was a significant factor one way or another in the appellant's view.
Again, apologies. I'm not sure. I would maybe suggest restarting my system here, because I trying to work with Callum to help to get the sound better, because again it's quite broken up.
One suggestion, Mr. McKinney, it might be if you try turning your video off. I've found in the past that can help with sound quality. Maybe we can try that and see how it goes.
Okay, can try that. Yeah.
I do apologise.
So how are we doing now in terms of sound quality?
Well, I have always been able to hear you. It seems you might be struggling to hear me. So can you hear me okay just now?
I can hear bits of the conversation, but it's quite broken up.
Right. Okay. Well, let's. I'll try and put the question to you again, and we'll see how it goes. Can you still hear me, though, Mr. McKinney?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I'm only interested in at this point the council's assumed birth rate from new housing in subsequent years, leaving aside the PPR, a birth rate of 0.025 births per house per year, which amounts to one new birth per year for every 40 houses. And I suppose my supposition is, well, whether that's a little bit higher or a little bit lower in reality, is that a big deal for the appellant? Is that a point of contention, or can we just take that assumption as a reasonable one and move on?
I think the methodology that the council use in terms of the ratios and indeed the model, I'm quite confused between having a standard sort of model approach and then a more specific model approach. I would expect that the more specific model approach should be used throughout, and that when they're adding in additional pupils and different little bits of a ratio for this and a ratio for that, the concern I would have is that they're being slightly random in bringing these additional ratios in, and that is inflating pupil projections, and indeed particularly if they're not actually allowing for the housing development to age. So to me, new housing is new housing when it's built, and as soon as it's built, it's old housing, and it starts to take on the characteristics of the surrounding area. It doesn't remain forevermore as new housing with different housing characteristics, and that is very important in terms of births. And if you consider the trend of births in Scotland at the moment, that is undoubtedly lower than it has been at virtually any point in time. And therefore my concern is that if you apply a strong potential or additional birth rate to Whitecross, that is something that's not happening virtually anywhere else in Scotland, or indeed in Falkirk. The average ratio in Falkirk is declining. And therefore adding in additional children through this method, I think, is suspect.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McKinney. That was helpful. And I just make the general point, if Mr. McKinney is struggling to hear some of this, hopefully it might get better. But Mr. Campbell, you and he might just need to reflect at the end of the hearing whether you feel it's worked for you and you've been able to give me the evidence that you wanted to do and follow the discussion. But we can maybe come back on that point at the end. We'll see how things go from here.
Yes, I was going to ask you earlier on if you wanted a summary at the end of each section, or indeed a written closing submission at the end of the sequence of hearings. But I'm open either way, or indeed none at all, if you feel you've got enough material.
Okay, I'll take a view on it at the end. But there's two aspects to that. Do I feel I've got enough? But if we've been having IT problems, do you feel it's been fair to your witness?
Indeed, I understand that.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. McKinney. That was helpful, and so I understand. So this question of 0.025, it feeds into the more general points we're making about birth rates and the council's assumptions, and I'm going to come on to that as well. So that's helpful. Right, let me just catch up with my notes here. I'm sorry, Mr. Taylor, I'm just going to go a few more questions about this, but I'm comforted that I seem to be understanding the projections model better than I did a few weeks ago. Okay, so yes, let's turn to the assumptions that your bespoke model makes about the existing community at Whitecross, or the existing catchment area for the school, I guess. Known pre-children, currently existing preschool age children would feed in over the next 5 years. That's correct.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we just assume normal cohort progression. We don't add anything to that. Okay,
and those figures aren't given anywhere here on this. I don't have that data on the projection. It's just built in. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just built in. If you look at the 2021, if you go to the top of the projections, there's the actual school roll for 2019-20. So those numbers feed through, and anything coming from new housing is added to that. There's also an assumed primary one intake figure for the next 5 years based on, in fact, we project for 10 years based on averages, but based on actuals for the next 5 years, based on the community health index data that we get from Forth Valley Health Board. And that tells us how many preschool children live within each school catchment area.
Yeah, okay. So assuming they all go to this school, there's going to be 3 primary ones this year, two primary twos and so forth, based on existing children. Those numbers aren't given separately in a table as an input here, but they are factored into the row projections table that I'm seeing here. Yeah.
We moderate that depending on parental preference, which affects certain areas. It doesn't affect Whitecross. There's no placing requests into Whitecross. And also denominational schools, which has a very low impact on Whitecross as well, because it's quite an isolated community.
Okay, no, that's understood. So we talked earlier on about Mr. McKinney. I'm just checking in. Can you hear me okay at this point?
David, can you hear the reporter? David? Hello, David, can you hear the reporter? grim.
Right. What a, Mr. I continued apologies for this. Mr. Campbell, with your consent, I'm going to continue to ask Mr. Teed these questions just about how the model works. But we might need to reconsider that or somehow deal with Mr. McKinney's apparent absence. So yes, we talked earlier on, Mr. Teed, 0.25 being 0.025 being Euros's birth rate for the new houses to be built. And I think you said there that for the existing community, beyond those first 5 years, you assume an average birth rate as well. Is that also 0.025, or is that a different figure?
Well, I mean, that's the figure I came to when I was doing the analysis and I looked across the board. But if you look at the intake on that projection there from 2009 to 2019, that's the number of children that arise from 450 houses. So you'll see that the figure of 0.025 is fairly consistent with the background birth rate that we would expect in Whitecross in the traditional housing there, which I think was probably built in the 1950s, most of it.
Okay, so yeah, we can see what the role has been over the last few years, but just for clarity, for the beyond year 5 in your projection, it's the same birth rate as assumed for both for the existing community in Whitecross and for the new houses, and that's 0.025 per house. Is that what I'm just trying to understand? Is that the figure the model uses?
Yeah, that's the model used. Yeah,
right.
I just wanted to put something in there to account for that, because you can't increase the number of houses by 50% without the birth rate increasing. So just assuming that it increases by 50% because the number of houses has increased by 50%, it just puts a value on that impact longer term, in the medium to the long term, because the pupil product ratio is really an instant hit. It's the migration into the new houses.
Yep.
So that's how we measure that. And I've also incorporated the preschool migration as well. But we do need a figure in there to look at the birth rates, because we've found in other areas we've vastly underestimated that, and it's cost us dearly. So.
Okay, Mr. McKinney, are you back with us, and can you hear us?
David, can you hear us? I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry about this.
Well,
I had not suspected that he would be in and out of the call in this way.
Could I just come in here and suggest that Mr. McKinney do what the reporter had done and leave and rejoin, if that's possible, because it seems to have improved on the reporter's side, so it may have the same effect with Mr. McKinney. I did test with Mr. McKinney the other day and there were no problems, so I don't know if it's an issue with there being more than a one-on-one conversation, with it being a group call.
Thanks, Callum. I see Mr. McKinney's just said that he just messaged there that he'll try and rejoin. Mr. Campbell.
I wonder if we could have a 10-minute recess. So I've had a message from those instructing me to say that they're taking steps to try and sort it out. I imagine that involves visiting Mr. McKinney, and that may be problematic, but could I have a 10-minute recess just to find out what's going on and then bring you up to date?
Yes, that seems quite sensible. So, Callum, we just turn our mics and our video off and reconvene at, say, 11:20. Should we try that?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll just keep this call running for now.
Keep the call running.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your forbearance.
I'm sorry to my colleagues for this.
Not at all.
there may have been other people in the house using the same internet connection. So we've tried to deal with that.
Yes, the good thing about schools being back is nobody's in my house playing the Xbox or watching YouTube while I'm trying to do this.
Yeah. Well, where is David McKinney? That's the thing.
I was going to suggest if the problem persists when David rejoins, he can try dialing in, which may help. That would mean he wouldn't have video, but that isn't as much a problem as having no audio. So if the problem persists, I'll suggest that too.
I'll try and get him on the mobile and see if I can. Hello? Hello? David, it's John. Can you come back on the call, please? You're trying to do that. Okay, good. Thank you.
It's character building.
Could be worse. We could be in a village hall somewhere. Nothing but purple. Ah. Hooray. Can't hear you now. Can't hear you. Where's my piece of paper? David, look at the screen.
Mr. McKinney, can you hear me? Can you wave if you can hear me? Right, I can't hear you just now. Is your sound muted?
Got everybody in the world shouting at him.
Callum, can you?
Sorry.
Sorry, Callum, can you hear me just now?
Yeah, I can.
I wonder whether we could, if Mr. McKinney can't get back in contact, whether we should just abandon this for the moment, and you and he could maybe try and sort it out. And I don't know what other people's availability is, but instead of resuming it, we can maybe resume at 1, or maybe 12:30 if that's okay for people, and try and make up some more time. How do people feel about that? Is doing 12:30, say, to 3:30 in the afternoon feasible for people?
On the basis that you said that most of your questions in this session were for the council, could I respectfully suggest that we just keep going? And if there's any major issue that's flagged up, either Mr. McKinney can come back at the end of the session if he fixes his sound, or I can submit a short note in response if there's any major issue. But this is a case which is distinguished by the fact that most of the issues have been well covered in writing.
Yeah.
Thanks to your initial range of questions. And so, I don't expect that whilst this hearing is useful, it's not going to be determinative. I wouldn't have thought. He's not in this session. Would that be a help? We could just get on till lunchtime. It's only 11:30 now.
Yeah.
With your other questions.
Mr. Campbell, yeah, that's very helpful indeed, actually. Yes, the questions I have are technical and factual for the most part. So I think that's a good idea. And what I would say is that you can take your notes, obviously, but this is being recorded. So you would have the ability afterwards with Mr. McKinney to look through what had been said, and if you felt that things had come up which you needed to respond to, then we could make an opportunity for you to do that. So that I'm grateful for that. Okay, Mr. Teed, then, if you can remember where we were 10 minutes ago, I think what I've taken is the birth rate. The figure we had is the same for both the existing. You just ask any other microphones other than Mr. Teed and myself can be muted just now. The birth rate is the same. So in this bespoke model, it's the same both for existing community and in new houses. It's 0.025 births a year, and that's based on a study that I think you said did about 10 years ago on birth rates. So if I've got that fine, then that's correct. We don't need to dwell any further on it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So the council has the yearly projections that it does for its schools every year. So how do those assumptions in your bespoke model for a yearly birth rate compare to the model in the assumptions about birth rates in the existing projections? The standard projections that you do.
Yeah, well, we don't build anything in for birth rate in the standard projections. Only a fraction of our school catchment areas are affected by volume housing developments. So, and these kinds of factors are really so long term for the secondary schools that that we don't really consider kind of birth rates for secondary schools, because we've got 10 to 15 years of real intelligence for them anyway through the primary school and preschool populations. So so we only really look at this forensically when there is a significant increase proposed for housing stock in an area, and we're at very large developments, and it's usually for these particularly large developments, and probably starting at about this size. But the scale of this proposal in respect to the area of Whitecross, which has only got 450 houses at the moment, is quite large. So we thought it appropriate to actually look at the impact in the medium to the long term as well. Okay. So your projections for primary school roles in the normal circumstances will have no new pupils coming into them in year 6 normally, because you're just not making any assumptions about birth rates. Is that right? Once the first 5 years are gone, you'll have no more pupils at the school in that standard model then, is that right? Well, no, we've got the existing levels. What we do is we project is the primary 1 projections, where we look at the pupils living within that catchment area that we get from the health board, and then we kind of moderate it according to the averages for denominational, non-denominational attendance and parental preference, based in request rates. So beyond 5 year beyond year 5 for each primary school, making an assumption about the size of the P1 cohort that's going to be coming in at each school each successive year. Yeah. Yeah, based on existing numbers, preschool numbers. So, yeah. And in the council's evidence, in the 7-page response that you prepared, Mr. Teague, to the appeal, just paraphrasing it,
you said you should factor in a rising birth rate with the number of births in a year in the existing community rising by 1 each year, beginning in year 5. So how does that statement, is that something in addition to what you've put in the projection, or is that assumption factored into that projection? I didn't quite understand how that statement feeds into the projection that you gave in response to the procedure notice.
Right. No, everything's in that projection. That's where all the numbers that are calculated. So I just assume that birth rate increases with the volume of houses in that particular catchment area, and that's the number.
Right.
So
Okay.
The statement's separate. Sorry if it's misleading. But,
no, it's fine. It's fine. So how that's given effect is by assuming a flat birth rate of 0.025 across all the houses. That's how that feeds into the model. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and you say beginning in year 5, but it's beginning in year 1. It's just that it won't produce any primary school children for year 5. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Just they'll go through the preschool years, and they'll gradually impact on the school as time progresses.
Okay, thank you. So can we go back then to what we were looking at before, which was the procedure note was 5, and we were on page 27. So your response to procedure note 5, which was which is the bespoke model, and the row at the bottom, which is shaded blue, says additional P1 intake. So I'm assuming that's just an output. It's just describing what's happening. It's not an additional assumption, an input that feeds into the model.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's just an output. That's additional to the sort of standard projection. So that's the impact from migration and into preschool and the additional birth rate. So it's just a accumulation of that.
Okay, so that's just there for illustrative purposes to show the difference between this and the standard projection.
Yeah, so that's me estimating within 8 years, within 7 or 8 years, we'll be seeing an additional 9 pupils in primary 1 every year due to the additional housing stock in the area. Okay,
that's fine. Yeah, okay. So, but those numbers are all contained in the tables above. It's not something separate. It's just showing the difference. Okay, I understand. Thank you. Mr. McKinney, can you just give us a wave or a nod just to show you're still following the discussion at this point? I'll assume that's a no. Okay.
David, can you hear me or not? David McKinney, can you hear? There's no sound, David. You have no sound, have you? He knows he must know I'm talking to him. David, can you wave if you can hear me, please? David, can you wave if you can hear me? I think that's a wave.
Okay. Well, I'm making the assumption Mr. McKinney can at least hear, but he can't participate just now.
No. I've got notes. It's all right. I've got notes.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Okay, so I want to ask now about Council's response to question W2 in my hearing in the Council's hearing statement. So I don't know if you could get that, Mr. Tweed.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this was about the difference between this bespoke projection for the school and the adopted one. And we might have covered this ground, so I'm just reminding myself what I was going to ask you.
This is W2, is it?
This is W2, yes, in the Council's response. Right. And so it talks there about the standard projection model and the circumstances which occurred elsewhere, and it focuses on migration rather than deeper demographic shifts. The final sentence is the bespoke model also incorporates migration into the new housing of preschool pupils. So, Mr. Teed, you confirmed earlier on that standard model doesn't have a birth rate assumption from existing houses, but beyond 5 years, where you know how many pupils there are, there's likely to be, because these children already are alive, you make an assumption about the size of the P1 cohort coming through. But you say there the bespoke model incorporates migration into the new housing of preschool pupils. So does that mean that the council's standard projections don't assume any preschool children in new housing? So beyond the initial 0.32 PPR for a new house, it's assumed that there's no preschool, that there's not any other preschool children in the new housing. Is that right? Yeah,
and that is a flaw really of the standard model when it comes to big developments affecting a community, and we've vastly underestimated the numbers because we haven't taken into account the intake. Obviously, every year we get a fresh figure from the health board, so our kind of actuals are updated, but in terms of our projection of those numbers coming through, we're not making any attempt to project those. So that's why I like to incorporate those with these larger impact developments.
Okay, that's understood. And then similarly, then thinking of the standard model, it I assume is not making any assumptions, or you're not building in any assumptions about a birth rate in new houses in the standard model. It's just the 0.32. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Why not?
Well, generally speaking, the most important projections for us for primary schools are the first 5 years. Beyond that, we're just trying to flag risks that may be waiting for us in the future. The longer term projections become more important when we're looking at significant proposals, larger sort of proposals, or a collective of large housing proposals. So we start to look at it in a bit more detail. But generally speaking, if we're looking at, and this is the same for all councils take a similar approach. I've been in discussions with the councils on the west of Scotland that use the Strathclyde model and other councils. And we all look at this approach and look at the actuals and try and estimate forward based on the actuals. So actually trying to project the new housing, that's the least tangible thing that we can try and project. So we've got to have different methods depending on where the risk is. So when we're looking from years 5 to 10 and beyond in a projection such as this, we do need to take a different approach.
Okay, no, that's I understand the point. Can we have a quick look at SG10, supplementary guidance SG10, if you can have that there, and if you can go to paragraph 3.3, I'll just give you a minute to find that, and for me to do likewise. Have you got that there, Mr. Teed?
What is it? The supplementary guidance? No.
Supplementary guidance SG10 from October 2019. The council's revised version of that supplementary guidance. It's document FC006, if that helps for this appeal.
I'll just go on the website and get it.
Right, Mr. Campbell, you've got access to that. Can't hear you, Mr. Campbell.
Sorry, was it FC10?
Sorry, no, it's SGS. Well, the council's document is FC006, so it's supplementary guidance SGS for sugar, G for George, 10
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
October 2019.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've got it now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, and I want to look at paragraph 3.3 of that document, which is on page 9 of the PDF.
Page 9. Okay.
Okay. So I'll read from it. The last sentence of it says, proposals for housing development over and above the existing commitments will be tested by rerunning the projections with the proposed development included. Yeah, and so that's what the council's done here. Is that correct, Mr. Teed?
Yeah. What paragraph is this?
I'm sorry. 3.3. Beg your pardon.
3.3. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last sentence is basically saying, for large developments over and above existing commitments, rerun the projection with the proposed development included. Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't say anything about changing the assumptions in the model, like the birth rate assumption and the migration from preschool. Should it have done? Should it have said that? Is that a mistake?
It's probably an omission. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I run the most appropriate projection for each scenario, really. So, I mean, we do have a standard model, but that's the basis I use. But yeah, the other factors do need to be taken into account, as I've said, with these larger proposals.
Okay, no, that's fine. It's just so I'm understanding what that paragraph has been. Okay. So, it's going to be I think we're going to have a cat in the screen for this time. Beg your pardon.
Excellent.
Oh dear. Okay. It'll be in a clip show. Right. So if we can go back then, we were focusing on the council's response to procedure notice 5. I'm sorry for the shuffling between documents, Mr. Teed.
That's all right.
And the current, we were looking at the bespoke projection for the primary school. But the current projection is in the previous page. I think it's on page 26. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we look at 2029/30 as an example, it projects a total school roll of 111 in that year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you've explained in your response, as you've explained in your response to my question 3, this seems to be based on assumption. This seems to be based on an assumption of 50 units a year being built at Whitecross from what were the previous housing developments in the old local plan. And that was meaning 17 new pupils each year from about 2022 to 2023. Okay?
Yeah.
So the bespoke projection that you prepared is based on 30 houses built rate a year, and it produces a higher roll of 135 in the same year. And we've explained it's the assumptions that you build into the bespoke model that is the reason for that. Okay, so some of these questions, I'm just going through the questions that I have prepared, but you've probably answered them actually in the discussions that we already had. So just bear with me while I go through these. Covered that bit. Yeah, so that's fine. So can we go back again to FC 021, which is just the 7-page document you prepared in response to the appeal, and to page 2 of that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So there's a number of bullets there under Whitecross Primary School. and it's when you're going through the various assumptions. The birth rates in the established village, well, we've covered that. You've explained that that's factored in by using the 0.025. The next assumption is general birth rates increasing pro rata as housing stock in the catchment increases. But again, that's given effect by the 0.025 assumption. Is that right?
Well, actually, the second bullet point for clarification is the established village. The birth rates were much higher, and they're on a declining curve at the moment. But we do expect that to pick up again. And if that's, I think, is it elsewhere in this document or in a separate document I submitted? I was in a separate document. I showed you the long-term kind of rise and fall of birth rates, the kind of deeper demographic trends, if you like. So I've assumed that from year 5 onwards that we would move back towards a higher birth rate level in the general population, and that's what we generally experience. We can't predict when that will happen, but we really do need to sort of identify what the risks are. What I think I've seen in kind of the appellate submission is, if we look at a decline in birth rate and everything in a fair wind, we're not going to see very high roll levels coming into sort of 5 and 10 year period. But this in 2016 there were 80 children at the school, so we can't assume that we won't get similar figures again in the background population, in the existing population. So I've factored that in just to identify that risk. But because I can't predict it, it's in year 5 onwards, so which is when we haven't got any birth rate figures.
Right. Yeah. Right. I understand the rationale there. What I thought you told me earlier was that the assumption for birth rates, both for the new housing and for the existing community in this model, the bespoke model, is 0.025 a year flat rate for every house. So I thought that's what you said earlier. Is that wrong?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at the 0.25, 0.025 times 450 that's 11 to 12 children for the background birth rate. But you can see that the numbers have dropped quite significantly recently. So assuming the numbers increase back to that level, then I've sort of built that in.
Back to 0.025 or back to a higher level than that?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's the birth rates are at a much lower level at the moment, but we would expect them to pick back up again.
Right. So rather than having a kind of target figure to go up, you've done a simpler approach of assuming one additional new birth in the community each year. So a gradual rise of birth rate, not to any particular target or expectation. It's just an assumption that that's built in. Yeah,
just so that we can factor in that the birth rates are going to increase again at some point. I mean, birth rates in new housing, the 0.025 figure, is quite a conservative estimate. We do see birth rate, we do see a lot of new children coming into new housing, and also, increase in birth rates, the standard sort of nest building effect. So sometimes you do see much higher rates than that in new housing. So 0.025, I think, is a very sort of reasonable estimate of that, because it's based on the sort of background rates, generally speaking.
Okay, that's fine, and I've got the evidence from Mr. McKinney about why he doesn't think that's appropriate. So I don't necessarily need to get into that just now, unless Mr. Campbell or Mr. McKinney wave their hands. I think I understand where they're coming from in criticising that approach. I just wanted to understand what the approach was, and you've clarified it for me. Okay.
Sir, I wonder if I might ask just one question through you. I'm not understanding the assumption of an increase in population from year 5 onwards. Mr. Teed has acknowledged what he called the nest building effect of new children coming into new housing. I would understand that. But it seems that his projections depend on an assumption, if I've understood his evidence correctly, and I'm sure you'll tell me if I haven't. It seems that the assumption is that population rates will start to increase again at year 5. Now, I'm not sure if that's primary 5 for the new children, or is that the 5th year of the house? 5th year in the life of the house.
So, Mr. I'll come back. I'll explain what I heard, and then I'll ask Mr. T.
Okay.
So I think what Mr. T was saying, that ordinarily the projections would just roll on, assuming the P1 cohort reflecting previous years are not doing much. However, to allow for the eventuality of a rising population, this bespoke model starts to add in new, younger children who would begin to become pupils at school in 5 years' time, then and years after that. So it's making an assumption, not by giving the existing community a specific birth rate, if you like, but just adding in one new pupil each year, 5 years down the line, and then 2 years, two new people. So it's making some sort of assumption that the existing community in 5 years' time will start to provide more an increasing number of new primary 1 pupils. But Mr. T can probably explain it better than me.
I think that's what I heard as well, but I don't understand where that assumption is coming from. Was really my question.
Yeah, the trend is generally a sort of 10-year roughly cycle of birth rates where it goes down and goes up again. So assuming that happens, we're likely to see numbers restored in the Whitecross community, and we can't project from year 5 onwards based on a continuing decline in the population, because that decline is it's by then it will have flattened off, and every likelihood that it will start to increase again. And of course, this all depends on the general trends within the council and Scotland as a whole. But from experience, from the data that we've got looking back 20 years, it's generally that's the trends that we see. And we've had a decline in birth rate for 5 years. It's kind of starting to level off now, and we would expect it to see it increase at some point in the future. So I didn't think it was unreasonable to suggest that if we project 1 additional child in each cohort per year back to previous levels, that's not unlikely to happen again.
Okay, not unlikely, you say. Yeah, thank you, sir. That's helpful.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to go back to my prepared questions just to check. But at this point, we're coming up to 12 o'clock. So it might, we're not going to get through this session now by the end of the morning. So maybe we'll stop at 12 and recommence at 1 o'clock and pick up where we left off, if that's okay for people. Yeah. And it might give Mr. McKinney further chance. Okay, that's progress at least.
Can people hear me, Ethan?
Yes, I can hear you there, Mr. McKinney.
You can?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well,
okay.
I think that's this connection on the phone. It seems to be working. I'll maybe not just switch it off.
Okay. I won't come back to you at this point, Mr. McKinney. It's maybe something that you and Mr. Campbell can reflect on either over lunch or later about the discussions that we've had, and whether you want to bring in, whether you want to respond to these points. But I'll just simply say, I think as Mr. Campbell identified, I've got a lot of evidence already. I think I understand your criticisms of the approach that the council's taken here. Okay. Okay, so I think we've moved on from that, but that's ultimately been quite helpful to me to help my understanding of what I was looking at in the projections. So question W3, I don't have any follow up to that, or to W4. We've got a few minutes left, so I'd like to talk about question W5. But again, we might have already covered this. So let me just check my notes here. Yeah, just a question. In your response to the procedure notice, sorry, in response to the appeal FC021, that for Graham High School has a no development projection, and it allows comparison between that and the bespoke projection that you prepared for the high school. Why isn't there a no development projection for the primary school?
Really, because we can only project accurately for the primary school for 5 years. For secondary schools, we've got 12 years of data, really. We've got the preschool data and we've got the primary school cohorts. So we've got actuals that we can feed in for 12 years. So we can get a very accurate kind of medium to long-term projection for the secondary schools. Whereas with the primary schools, we can really only look at what's going forward for 5 years. I mean, I can project for 5 years without any housing development, but it wouldn't be a million miles from what you're seeing for the next 5 years, because the impact of the housing development doesn't really take effect until years 5 to 10.
Okay. So let me see. That was question 5. Yeah. So I think my question at 5 was misconceived because I had misunderstood how the PPRs worked. But the point of this these questions was just trying to understand what the school would look like if there wasn't any housing development taking place. And I speculated on what that might be. Mr. McKinney took a simpler and probably cleverer approach than I did. He looks at the projection, and the projection assumes 8 new children in primary 1 each year. And with 17 pupils from the development each year, that's generating 3 pupils for primary 1. Therefore, if you could strip out the effects of the development alone from your model, then each new year, the existing community must be providing 5 children a year, if the cohort's 8, and 3 are from the new development. And if you roll that forward, then he was saying that gives the school roll, without absent the development, of 35 pupils. I think that was Mr. McKinney's kind of approach to that question. Have I understand that right, Mr. McKinney? That's what you did.
Yeah, I simply took your proposition and put it in the context of the council's table and rolled those numbers forward. So the reduction without any housing, if you assume those numbers, the roll of 35, that's what we would expect it to head down to.
Okay, and Mr. Teed, I hear the caveats you give about the need to make assumptions about birth rates and transfers and so on, but if you've got any comments on that exercise that Mr. McKinney engaged in there?
No, only to say that we do have projections without any housing, and I'm projecting it reducing to about 46 pupils. But again, we've only got data for the next reliable data for the next 4 or 5 years. So because year 5 preschool, the pupils from birth till 1 is an incomplete figure from the health board. So we don't know what's going to happen beyond that. But I would argue that rather than seeing the numbers decline continually, we're going to see the roll rise to to similar levels or thereabouts at some point in the future. So we really need to look at what the role has been in the last 5 years and identify, the high point there as really the baseline from which new housing should be calculated.
Okay, we'll just finish off this quick discussion before we break. You said there you've got projections without housing declining to 46. I don't think I've seen those as any. I don't think the council submitted those as evidence, has it?
No. It's the first time you've asked for it. So it's basically it's not a million miles from what's being projected for the next 4 years anyway, from the existing projections, because the ones that you've got, because the impact of new housing doesn't really take effect till beyond that period. So so it won't really add any information to what you've already got. It's just that there is a decline in intake at the moment, and we're estimating that. We haven't done this year's projections yet, so I haven't got sort of access to those. But this is just last year's. We just look at the census and the figures we get from the health board. But with a very small school like this, and this is one of our smallest schools, the numbers can vary quite a lot with just one or two families. So we can get big changes from year to year. So the standard projection isn't always that reliable for very small schools. The smaller they get, the more sort of more it can change on a year-to-year basis. So even the in the short to medium term projections can be quite unreliable in that sense. Okay, no, I take that point. So just to clarify, because this might be important. It's certainly important I understand it right. You for the high school you gave me projections with the school, with the housing development, and projections without it. For the primary school, with the same issues that are in play, you gave me projections for the housing development, but none without the housing development. So I just assumed they didn't exist, but you've clarified that they do, albeit I've not got them. It's last year's standard ones. It projects a decline to 46 pupils. I accept, I'll come on to the basis for that in a second, because I just want to clarify my understanding. Can I just ask first, what year is that? Just so I understand how far forward it's looking. Well, if we look forward to where we've got 100% reliable preschool data, 23-24, and 24-25, where the data's slightly underrepresented, we've got 45, so it's about the same figure. So if I look forward 5 years, it's 45. Right, and does the projection go beyond that? It does, but then it's just based on averages. So we can't really project a continuing decline, because that might never happen. You could get two families moving in, and the numbers change completely, and they're back at 60. So I think, this is what you were saying earlier on, that beyond those 5 years, when you know what children are around, you tend to assume a kind of steady state for the school. Okay. Everything flattens out after year 5. So for primary schools, I don't generally provide projections beyond 5 years, because to anyone when they're requesting it, because that's really just internal purposes, but then they're not wholly reliable, because we don't have actual data to back it up. It's all based on averages. Okay, that's fine. No, that helps my understanding of what you were saying. I think this is. I've got a few more questions on the projections, but we've broken the back of it. I think it's probably, though, a good time to stop. That would allow, if, as I said, either now or later, Mr. Campbell and Mr. McKinney to have a discussion. Sorry, Mr. Campbell, you've got your hand up.
I just wondered if I might have one question before we break, but I can just as easily keep it till after lunch if you're not finished in this section yet.
Well, it's fine for me. If everyone else has a few more minutes while it's fresh in your mind, then just carry on.
Well, it was just to ask Mr. Teed, who is the education planner for the authority, does he think it's reasonable that developers of a relatively small housing development should be committing to a new school when his own projections are acknowledged to be, as you put it, not wholly reliable? shouldn't there be more certainty before you seek finite cash contributions from developers? So it's a wide general question like that.
I would say that I think I've demonstrated the risks to school capacity quite clearly, and as a council we can't accept that risk. We get one opportunity in these circumstances to assess the risks and to ask for a contribution, and I don't think what we're asking for is unreasonable. And like any Section 75 agreement that would be associated in these proposals, it would be subject to, you know, a payback agreement. So we wouldn't build the capacity if it wasn't required. But as far as I can assess the risk, we will require to increase capacity at Whitecross Primary School if the size of the settlement increases by 50%, and that 50% increases new family style housing, which we generally see a larger proportion of school children in.
Obviously, so we're not in an inquiry, so I don't want to introduce a whole raft of follow-up questions, which you will immediately perceive that I might have. I'll just leave it there just now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll suspend the hearing just now then, and with your permission, we will continue. Then hopefully we can move on to hearing 5. I don't think I have, well, I don't have so many questions on that one, so hopefully that will be swifter. So Callum, can I just ask, we're going to close this session and start the other one at 1 o'clock. I assume that's how we're going to do this.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll end this call once you're ready to end it, and then I'll start the other session at 1:45 to give everyone time to join.
But we just dial in with the same codes, do we?
It's a separate set of details. It should have been sent out along with the details for this by the case officer.
It was sent out by Smira, I think.
Yeah, there's a link for each separate hearing, so you just click on to the link for hearing 5. Okay, thank you everyone, and hopefully we'll be this afternoon's will be a bit less bumpy in terms of the IT. So thank you very much for just now. I'll suspend the hearing.
Thank you.